dive right into this, shall we? We have all been there. You're just minding your own business, maybe scrolling on your phone, watching a show, or just lying in bed, and then bam, out of absolutely nowhere, this sexual urge just hits you. It can feel so random, right? A little confusing even. But what if I told you that's just your brain doing its job? Maybe a little too well? Today, we're going to break down the science of those sudden urges. I mean, that's the first question that pops into your head, isn't it? Whoa, where on earth did that come from? It feels totally disconnected from what you were just doing. But as you're about to see, these urges, they're not nearly as random as they feel. They're actually signals, and your brain is the one sending them. So here's the first thing you really gotta get. It all starts in the brain. The whole reaction that kicks everything off happens so unbelievably fast that it's often completely unconscious. Seriously, your body is already reacting before you've even had a chance to think, hey, what's happening? And when I say fast, I mean it. Research shows sexual arousal can actually begin in less than 2 seconds. That is an insanely quick response time when you stop and think about it. That's right, it happens faster than a conscious thought, faster than you can even blink. Your brain lights up and kicks off a response before you've even fully processed what you just saw or heard or maybe even smelled. It literally reacts before you do. And the main character in this lightning-fast process, it's a part of your brain called the hypothalamus. The easiest way to think of it is like your brain's automatic sensor. It's constantly scanning your environment, and yeah, even your own thoughts, for any little cue that might signal pleasure or safety or attraction. It is always on duty. So what kind of cues is this little sensor looking for? Well, sometimes they're super obvious, like a particular scent or a sound that you associate with something. But they can also be incredibly subtle, like just noticing the warmth in someone's facial expression. Or it can be entirely internal. Just a passing thought or a random memory can be more than enough to flip that switch. And get this part is absolutely wild. Your brain is so powerful that just imagining touch can activate nearly 80% of the exact same areas as actual physical touch. This is the reason those urges can feel so intensely physical, even when literally nothing is happening around you. Your own mind is creating a very, very real biological experience. So let's build on that. Because it turns out not every sexual urge is, well, about sex. Sometimes your brain is trying to send you a signal about something much, much deeper. Right, so on the surface, it just feels like a simple physical urge, but have you ever noticed that these things can get way stronger when you're stressed out, or lonely, or maybe even just bored? That's because your brain might actually be craving comfort, or connection, or a sense of calm. A sexual thought can become this kind of quick little dopamine snack to make you feel a bit better when life feels kind of heavy. Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called misattribution of arousal. It's basically when your brain gets its wires crossed, confusing an emotional need with a physical one. And this happens because the body's wiring for stress, for comfort, and for attraction, they all overlap and kind of share the same pathways. So that sudden urge that just seems to pop up out of thin air, it could very well be your brain's unique way of sending you a message that isn't really about sex at all, but is instead this simple, profound request. Hey, I need closeness. I need some calm. It's a call for emotional safety. Okay, so this brings us to a really common and, let's be honest, frustrating experience, trying to just shut these urges off. Why is it that the moment you tell yourself to stop thinking about something, it only gets louder? Well, let's talk about the willpower myth. Let's be perfectly clear on this one. Having a sudden urge has absolutely nothing to do with being weak-willed. These are biological signals, not some kind of moral failing. I mean, your brain evolved to send these signals to make sure we all kept the species going. And frankly, it doesn't really care if you're in the middle of a work meeting. The whole pink elephant problem explains this perfectly. You've heard this, right? Try not to think of a pink elephant. It's impossible. The very act of trying to push the thought away brings it right to the front of your mind. Fighting an urge just gives it more power and cranks up the volume. So here's a much better way to think about it. An urge is like a phone ringing. You can't stop the phone from ringing. That's the biological signal firing off. But you absolutely have a choice. You can decide whether or not to answer it, or you can just notice it ringing and let it go to voicemail. And this leads us to the most powerful tool we actually have. Instead of trying to suppress everything, we can practice something called mindful regulation. It's all about working with your biology, not fighting against it. So what does that actually look like when it happens? Well, it's a pretty simple 3-step process. First, just pause. Take one deep breath instead of immediately reacting. Then, get curious. Ask yourself, okay, what is my body or my mind really trying to tell me right now? And finally, just notice the feeling. Observe it without any shame, without any judgment, almost like a scientist just looking at data. It's a simple shift, but it's a powerful one, from reacting to responding. Now, building this skill does take a little practice, of course, but simple tools like a regular mindfulness practice, maybe journaling about what you're feeling when these urges pop up, or even just doing a few deep breathing exercises, these can all help you process the feeling instead of letting it hijack your attention. And that's really what this all comes down to. You see, true control doesn't come from fighting or trying to suppress your internal world. It comes from understanding it. So the next time you feel one of those sudden urges, try not to panic or feel ashamed. Just remember, these urges, they do not define who you are. They're just signals, signals from a biological system that's been evolving for millions of years. And that's the key takeaway. You are not your thoughts. You are not your urges. You are the consciousness that is observing them. And right there, in that little space between the signal and your reaction, that's where your power is. The power to listen, to understand, and ultimately to choose.